And I think I made it so you can share.
Yes. And can you guys see that full screen?
Yep.
Great. Okay, so in this presentation, I'm going to talk about something that's become very familiar to all of us over the past year plus, and that's Zoom fatigue. With the transition to so many classes and meetings on Zoom, this is something that's extremely relevant and has some interesting potential neurological underpinnings. When COVID-19 made in-person classes impossible, many organizations and schools began this transition to holding classes over Zoom. The boost in Zoom usage caused by the pandemic is clearly seen in the rise in daily meeting participants and the statistics on Zoom's revenue. In April 2019, there were 10 million meeting participants each day. Just a year later, this number jumped to 300 million. The daily user base surged 2,900% since the beginning of the COVID pandemic. Zoom's revenue is also representative of this major increase in usage. The total revenue for each quarter of each fiscal year is shown in the chart to the right. Fiscal year 2021 for Zoom ended on January 31st, 2021. For the fourth quarter of this 2021 fiscal year, the total revenue was $882.5 million, which was up 369% year over year. So now we'll get into some of these cognitive factors that could potentially lead to this Zoom fatigue. One of these possible factors is the reward cost trade-off of being on Zoom versus being in person. When on video conferences, there's this potential lack of perceived reward relative to cost. Social interactions are associated with reward circuits. For example, oxytocin, which is involved in social bonding, modulates dopaminergic pathways that are involved in reward processing. Also, fMRI data has shown that live face-to-face interactions activate brain regions associated with reward more so than interactions on video conferences. These regions that show greater activity include the ventral striatum, amygdala, and the anterior cingulate cortex. In more active social interactions, there's more perceived reward. Therefore, Zoom severely limits social interactions, making our online classes less rewarding. Another cognitive factor that could be at play in creating Zoom fatigue is eye contact. Eye contact results in faster responses, better facial memorization, and increased likability and attractiveness. These results of eye contact make interactions rewarding, yet are largely lost over video. When on Zoom, one must gaze at the camera in order to simulate eye contact. This is far different than actually looking into one's eyes. Also, when more than two people are in a video conference, as is the case with all classes, there's no one-on-one eye contact, since it's impossible to make eye contact with only one Zoom box, since we merely gaze at the camera for as close to eye contact as we can actually get. The next factor I'm going to talk about involves mirror neurons. Mirror neurons are bimodal neurons, meaning that they fire in response to stimuli from more than one sensory modality. Mirror neurons are activated when an individual acts and when an individual observes the same action performed by another person. Activation of these mirror neurons helps us detect someone else's emotions through their actions. Teachers rely on their emotions and actions to prompt students to mirror their feelings about certain topics or lessons. However, over Zoom, nonverbal cues are largely reduced, and activation of mirror neurons likely decreases as well. Also, there's an increase in cognitive resources required to understand the meaning of others' actions and words. Students cannot detect other people's emotions and actions as easily over Zoom. Part of this problem comes from the slight delay that exists sometimes with poor connections and things like that. This delay makes it even more cognitively costly, as we have to work to fill in these gaps and obtain some type of synchrony. The last cognitive factor I'm going to talk about is autobiographical memory. Our brains have place cells, border cells, grid cells, and head direction cells in the hippocampal entorhinal circuit. These cells are sometimes called the brain's GPS, and they're activated when we occupy a certain position in the environment. These GPS neurons help identify spatial coordinates and organize memories about specific locations. The brain collectively encodes location information in episodic memories, which is crucial for the formation and consolidation of autobiographical memories. However, these GPS neurons are not activated in the same way when we take classes over Zoom. Zoom is a multi-compartment environment, meaning that we're physically in a room when we take class. However, we're also in a different digital space. Zoom is not a place, and thereby attending class on Zoom does not result in the same type of autobiographical memories being formed. This results in feelings of placelessness. When in the classroom, we do not only act as students, but we in a way become students. This psychological transition does not occur to the same extent when completing class over Zoom. Many of these cognitive factors are very difficult to combat. However, there are some ways in which we can work to decrease Zoom fatigue. One way is to close other tabs. The brain is not good at multitasking, and trying to do so hurts performance. When trying to multitask, the brain switches between tasks, which can cost up to 40% of productive time. Also, mini breaks can be helpful. Some research suggests that minimizing the Zoom window or looking away for a few seconds when in long classes could be helpful. These breaks should entail letting the eyes rest, not moving to another activity. Another interesting adjustment is potentially having a class use simpler backgrounds on Zoom. When we look at someone's Zoom box, we process the face and the environment. Seeing many complex environments can be mentally taxing. So an interesting question is whether having everyone use a simple, like a single color background could help reduce this cognitive load. And with that, I have two discussion questions, if we want to get into these now, or it really depends on time.
Yeah, maybe we should, just to make sure Marissa has time,
Yeah, definitely.
skip it. If we have time, we should come back and just leave them up for a second so people can see what the questions are.
Yep.
I love the first one. I think that's a great, interesting idea. All right. Thank you, Jack. That was great.
One second. Oops. You guys see that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, sweet. So I'm doing my presentation on the neuroscience of meditation. Just to go into some background here, meditation originates from Buddhist traditions, which originally was focused on spiritual growth, but now it's become more of a secular practice for stress reduction, relaxation, and self-improvement. And there's evidence dating back to like 5,000 to 3,500 BCE in India, showing people meditating in wall art. So meditation and mindfulness refers to practices relating to awareness, attention, and acceptance. And it's known to have benefits that include like a number of things from reduction in stress, improving focus and attention, improving mental health, and increasing mindfulness. So there's a lot of different types of meditation, but some of the more popular ones I listed here being mindfulness meditation, mantra meditation, and body scan meditation. So looking at it in the prevalence of media, it's become super mainstream with over 30 million Americans practicing it. It also has like achieved a wide like ranging popularity in psychology, psychiatry, medicine, and in neuroscience. So the term itself began to gain a lot of traction. And so now it's super influential and used with the general public, just in like schools, workplaces, and even in gyms. And it's kind of a broad term that encompasses a number of practices and aspects. And just to look at how popular it is, I looked at a study conducted by the CDC, which investigated like just how popular holistic health and wellness practices were in America. And so a team of researchers examined the rise of most popular complementary practices being yoga, meditation and chiropractic care in America over a 5-year period. And what they found from like these three main types is that yoga was the most popular, but meditation was identified as the fastest growing trend, which showed like more than a 3-fold leap in users. So super popular actually. In one study I wanted to look at, it was done on Tibetan Buddhist monks. So this was done at the University of Wisconsin-Madison, and it focused on 2 particular types of meditation that these monks do, being focused attention meditation and open monitoring meditation. And just to quickly summarize their results from their study, they found that there was altered patterns in brain function, changed cortical evoked responses to visual stimuli, and differences in brain connectivity in the monks. And so the monks were, they were expert meditators, obviously, and they showed a lower activation to novice meditators in the amygdala during focused attention meditation when exposed to emotional sounds. So in both of these types of meditations, the results show that extensive meditative training lets these experts use super like minimal effort in order to increase their attentional focus and just maintain a mindful state. So the figure on the right is the relationship between the degree of meditation in years and the hemodynamic response in the amygdala to that distractor sound in the long-term Buddhist practitioners from the right side of the amygdala. There is, however, a difficulty in classifying like exactly what meditation and mindfulness can do for people. This is just because the practice itself is kind of varied in how you like have your mindfulness. So there's definitely a considerable amount of semantic ambiguity around the meaning of mindfulness. So any study that uses the term definitely has to be analyzed and scrutinized just to figure out exactly what type of mindfulness is involved and what sorts of like explicit instructions were actually given to the participants for directing like the practice. So there has to be like a consistent study design to like a particular definition just to avoid any like ambiguity. What I mean by that is like there's no universally accepted definition for mindfulness. So like in considering what is mindfulness, it could be like, is it being more attentive or is it just being calmer in general? And just to look at some further findings in other studies that I was looking at, it showed that meditation can produce observable results via fMRI. And also some of the main findings include increased immune function, increased functional connectivity, increased attentional focus, and enhanced sensory processing. And of course, the results are sometimes met with some skepticism, as I talked about earlier, but one of the main proponents for furthering mindfulness and meditation in medicine is the mindfulness-based stress reduction program, which is used to treat those with anxiety, depression, PTSD, and chronic pain. And it was actually started at the University of Massachusetts Medical School. So super cool stuff there. And I do have a few discussion questions if we wanted to get into that now.
So yeah, so I think we have till 3:15, right? So we have a couple minutes if you want to talk about Jack's questions, or if you want to look at Marissa's questions, or also if you have questions for them. If any students have questions for either Jack or Marissa on their presentations too. Questions for them? No. Okay, so let's So yeah, so any of these questions or Jack's question, does anybody want to answer any of them? Sierra?
I can answer the first one. I incorporate meditation and mindfulness every single day. And sometimes that's in the form of just like actually just sitting there being silent or like working out and stuff. And it 100% works. Like I definitely see an impact on the health of impact on my health and wellness. I just feel just automatically 10 times better immediately afterwards. And I feel like that is the case for a lot of people too. But yeah, it definitely works for me.
Anyone else? So what about, oh, Juliana, go ahead.
I was just going to say I agree with Sierra as well. And it was interesting seeing some of the research that you found on how it can impact even like sensory processing and like all kind of aspects of brain health. I thought that was really cool to look into.
Yeah, to go off about the first question too, I really do think that meditation and mindfulness has been a huge part for me these past years. And so one thing that I've used is an app called Pixel Dot. And so essentially you write like a stressful thought and it turns into a star. And then there's like it's like for 2 minutes and there's like background music into it. That's like something that's like stressful that just like, if it's something stressful for you at the time, then you just put it into the app, turns into a star. It's like, oh, gone away. And then you get like relaxed and all that. And definitely helps me with, just getting through the day and all that stuff.
Will you drop in the chat what it's called, what that app is called? Great, thank you. Anyone else? Can we use meditation to cure Zoom fatigue? I'm trying to tie these together here. Any other thoughts or questions? All right, I thought those were both excellent. Thank you both very much. If other folks don't have anything, I just thank you all so much. And I'll send out a reminder for who's presenting next week.